Hi guys, it's Miss McGann. Today we're talking about finding the hypotenuse. Using the Pythagorean theorem and two different side lengths, we're going to try and figure out what that longest length is. What is C? Once again, our formula is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And yes, you can do this. If the side lengths of a right triangle are 3 inches and 4 inches, what is the hypotenuse? So the hypotenuse is this longest side. It's called C, and it's directly across from that 90-degree angle in the triangle. So we're trying to figure out what is that length. And they gave us the two other side lengths, so we're just going to keep using that Pythagorean theorem to figure out the side lengths. So plugging in A and B, and we're going to leave C alone because we need to figure out what C is. Remember, use the inverse operations to solve equations. That's going to come up later when we do square roots to undo our C squared. But we'll see how this plays out. So plug in your numbers for the variables. We have 3 squared plus 4 squared equals C squared because we plugged in our numbers. We're going to figure out what is 3 squared and 4 squared. So 3 squared is 9, 3 times 3 is 9, and 4 squared, 4 times 4 is 16. So our next step would be to figure out what is 9 plus 16. We're going to simplify one side, and we're going to try and balance it with the other. So both sides need to be equal. They need to balance. So 9 plus 16 is 25, and we're still left with the c squared over here. But notice we put these square root symbols. In order to undo the square, we're going to do the inverse operation, like I said, and we're going to do the square root. So that way we can get c by itself, and we'll figure out what is our c length. So if we do the square root of 25, what is the square root of 25? If you plug in your square root button in your calculator and type in 25, what do you get? 5. Exactly. So c equals 5. The square root of c squared is c. The square root of 25 is 5. So our answer is the hypotenuse is 5 inches. Next step. All right, so if the side lengths of a right triangle are 7 millimeters and 24 millimeters, what is the hypotenuse? So once again, longest side, we know this number is going to be bigger than 7 and 24 because the hypotenuse has to be the biggest number. So we're going to use our formula, plug in those numbers. We can plug in 24 and 7, or you could have done 7 and 24. A and B can be intermixed. But 24 squared plus 7 squared equals c squared. 24 squared is 576, and 7 squared is 49. So if we add those together, we're going to get 625. So in order to do the inverse operation to get c squared, to get c by itself, we're going to have to do the square root. So we'll do the square root over here too. So square root of 625 is 25. So yeah, we've learned that this last length here must be 25. Our hypotenuse is 25 millimeters long. And that does make sense for our problem because 25 is greater than 24 and 7. Here's our last example. If the side lengths of a right triangle are 5 feet and 12 feet, what is the hypotenuse? And I like also that we have our measurements labeled. So here's our equation, our Pythagorean theorem. We're going to plug in our numbers and figure out what c is. 5 squared is 25, 12 squared is 144, and together they make 169. We want to keep both sides balanced, so we're going to do the square root of both sides. Square root of c squared is c. Square root of 169 is 13. So the hypotenuse is 13 feet long. All right, guys, go ahead and get practicing.